What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making
What's happening, folks? Welcome to Monday. If you notice, up here on the our whiteboard, we've got a brand new chat command. Exclamation point menu will tell you what we're making today, and there it is. So now there is a feed you. There is a cooldown on it, so then that way it's not spamming chat infinitely, but it will also pop up automatically about every, I think, 10 minutes or so. At least that's what I set the timer for. So hopefully that will work out nicely. I tested it earlier today and it seemed to be working fine, so that's good. You will probably notice some serious background hum, and there's a very good reason for that. It's because directly underneath the camera and where I've got the laptop is my Sous Vide, my immersion circulator, and my little container of water that we're going to be sous videing in today. So it's going to be making a bit of noise, and the fridge has decided, hey, I'm going to make some noise too, just because it can. On the menu today, we are going to do a couple of New York strip steaks in the sous vide water bath, and then we will finish them off with a ripping hot cast iron pan. I like finishing with the cast iron pan, although, to be honest, I haven't really done it very much in a fair amount of time, only because I've been using my weed burner out on my makeshift grill that I have outside because it tends to go faster and way less cleanup. So that's been sort of my preferred method, but because I can't take a camera outside just yet, we're going to do it with the cast iron pan. And so at the moment, I got my oven on at 400 degrees because the potatoes are going to be BRAIDS.
That's what I meant to say.
That's what she meant to say. Yes, Mrs. Wayso did the braids today, finally. She's been very busy. But we got the cast iron pan in the 400 degree oven just kind of warming up. So then that way we don't have to heat it over our burner for an extended period of time. And it's already going to be nice and hot for finishing off the steaks. Then lastly, we're going to have some green beans that I'm going to make in kind of our preferred, at least my preferred methodology, and we enjoy it in this household, of, oh snap! G-Money, oh my goodness. Welcome, everybody from Grant's stream. Hope everybody's hungry. Oh good, the Snackbot's sending out the welcome messages. Hey Lumpy, welcome. Pio, dude, welcome. Our resident handsome Brazilian. Oh my goodness, chat's like flying by. But welcome everybody. Don't worry about it, Pio, it's all good. Oh snap! We just got bombed. Thank you so much, Senor Vampiro, de video de discos video. I was just talking about the menu, and also we've got the menu command, so then that way you can just like pop it in there and see what's actually going on. That was a fun tip that I actually stole, and I don't know if she's going to roll in today, but Terrible Hime, whom I met in Grant's stream, I checked her out yesterday, and so it was just like, hey, follow along. She was making bibimbap, and it was a good time. And Kelly, just as an FYI, it's probably on a global cooldown right now. If you scroll back up in the chat, it should pop up for you. But yeah, we were just talking about what I'm making in my preferred sort of methodology. I make it, so a lot of times when I'm making things like broccoli or carrots, or in this case, green beans, and some other vegetables. My preferred method is actually a combo saute steam, which is a trick that I picked up from the wonderful culture of China, where you started off by kind of doing a stir fry with it, then throw in a liquid and slap on a lid and finish off steaming. For the steaming liquid, I'm going to be using a dry sake, and we're going to be throwing in some garlic as well as some sambal, which is a chili garlic paste. And then there it is, Snackbot for the win. Yeah, it's fantastic. We love it. It's easy, and it will be a good time. Now the potatoes lyonnaise, we're like, hey, we love potatoes around here, and you know, we should probably change it up a little bit. And so Mrs. Wayso was like, hey, this kind of popped up in a feed of hers or whatever, and she's like, how about we do this? And said, potatoes mayonnaise? No, we have done potatoes mayonnaise, and we will do potatoes mayonnaise in the future. However, today we're doing lyonnaise, which is named after the region of Lyon in France. I'm not going to be doing it in a strictly traditional sense. Traditionally, when it's made, you take your potatoes, you peel them, you slice them, and then you boil them for a couple of minutes to just soften them up. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow. That was Carl, I think, right? Yeah, Carl. Not to be confused with Kit, but it was his mortal enemy. The evil Car. Hey, Shinigami, thank you so much. You boil the potatoes and you hang on to them for a little bit. Then you take your onions, you saute those up until they get nice and soft, and then in sort of the traditional fashion, in that same sort of skillet that you made the onions in, you take them out, you put in fat of your choice, usually something like duck fat, goose fat, lard, butter, or some other oil. Then you layer the potatoes, layer some onions, layer more potatoes, and kind of repeat until you run out of everything. And then bake it for about 20 minutes or so at the 400 degrees, and then pull them out, and then finish it off with parsley or kind of whatever. Now, in our case, I'm not going to put them in the oven in a skillet, and I'm not going to worry too much about the actual laying it down all nice and even. But what I will end up doing is, after sauteing up the onions, we'll mix in the potatoes, and we're going to put them in a Pyrex dish to bake those off. So those are, hey, Ragutus, welcome. And then, yeah, we're going to bake them off for about, I'm a little hesitant about saying like 15 minutes, just because it seems like a really short amount of time in order to get any kind of crispy, which is what we want. And so we'll check and kind of let them go as we need to. And possibly at the very end, we may crank up the broiler and pop them underneath just to get some additional yummy goodness through caramelization. So, in case you hadn't noticed, finally got the braids going. The little bands that we had gotten suck, so I'm gonna need to get some actual proper rubber bands. Because these, I swear, if you like look at them sideways, they decide they're just gonna kind of fall out. But I like them, and so we're gonna roll with it. First and foremost, we need to get the steaks into the temperature-controlled water bath. So what I actually did earlier today is busted out a couple of New York strips and set them to thaw, because these are from a primal that I broke down. And I put on some of my kombu salt, which is sea salt that has had powdered giant kelp added to it, and then also a little bit of dried shiitake mushroom and katsuobushi or bonito flakes, to just kind of, as like Yeah, exactly. It's an umami bomb, as Lumpy Pickle said. A lot of natural glutamates in there that just kind of ratchets it up. And then when it first like showed up on camera, you notice I had them up on edge like that. And the reason is the salt on the surface of it, by way of osmotic action, osmosis, that's high school biology, folks, dissolves really easily on the presence of the moisture. Oh, G-Money dropping a bomb. Thank you so much, buddy. Seriously, that is super appreciated. Thank you. But what it does is it acts as like a dry brine, meaning that the salt draws moisture out of the meat, dissolves into it, and then the cells are trying to reach equilibrium, and because of the size of the molecules and everything, it actually sucks it back in and helps season the meat a little bit. I didn't put any pepper or any other seasoning on it because a lot of those flavor compounds are in the form of like oils, especially in pepper, and we know that oil and water don't mix. So it doesn't make sense to put anything like that on it if I'm going to be cooking in this particular fashion. We will finish off maybe with some pepper or something at the very end. More than likely, I'll probably spoon on some of my homemade Worcestershire sauce, since that's sort of my preferred way of eating it, which is just straight up delicious. So first thing I need to do is I need to get these into a bag, so then that way we can get them going sous vide wise. And thankfully, through the magic of preparation. So let me turn that camera off real quick. This is my vacuum sealer. I use it not only for doing sous vide stuff, but I also use it when I go to like if I buy stuff at the market that I want to hang on to, if I find something on sale, I'm like, oh, cool, chicken's on sale for like an insanely good price, then I will actually buy multiples of them and freeze them. And then this way, since it sucks out almost all the air, it lasts for a really nice amount of time. So I'm just putting them in there and just kind of getting them nice and cozy. And I don't have it back to the very end, because what I've found is if you have it all the way to the seam, because I sealed this bag earlier today, what ends up happening is that it has a difficult time sucking out the air from around there. And so I just do that, so then that way it works a little bit easier, and then it's good to go. So let's get that on there. And then we wait while it sucks out all the air. Oh, that's awesome, Scott Connor. I didn't realize. I'll have to check to see if my Instant Pot will do sous vide, because that would actually be kind of cool. But the setup I got here, I've had for a while. In fact, I'll pull down this camera and show you in just a moment. Okay, so this is almost done sealing. And there we go. Okay. And we're all sealed up. So let's pull this camera down. Everybody prepare to get motion sick. Okay. Got a light blinding everybody. So this is my immersion circulator at work. I currently have it set for 129 Fahrenheit. And this is a 3-gallon Cambro container. And I actually cut a hole out of the corner of the lid to help kind of minimize evaporation. And so at this point, all I'm going to do is just crack it open. And drop it in the water. And then what I like to do, if I can, is I leave a little bit of the bag kind of hanging out. And then when I put the lid on, it kind of keeps it in place. And then you can see that it's sitting fully submerged in this 129 degree water. And we can now set a timer. Let's see. And if we can set this back up. Ta-da! And we're back. And then that's set good to go. Now, thankfully, this particular model has an app. And so what I can do is I say, okay, I want it to go for this amount of time. I set it, and now the timer runs. And yeah, so this will go for 90 minutes. And then when it's ready, the immersion circulator will start beeping to tell me that it's done. However, if I let it go a little bit longer, it's okay. Thankfully, with doing steaks like this, it's pretty dang forgiving. I would really only start to worry if I've left it in there for 10 hours or so. At this point, it's like, hey, I can leave it alone, and if it's in there for 3 or 4 hours, it doesn't matter. I can just kind of come back to it any time, and then it's just a question of finishing it off. Because when they're finally done, what you'll see is that the surface is really kind of gray, and to be honest, it looks nasty. It looks like, ugh, like you boiled a piece of meat, and the primal urges inside of us should scream that something is very much wrong here. But it's okay. Trust your boy Decay. Trust the Chupahueso, and I know what I'm doing here, okay?
AJ has a question.
Oh, does the timer run from when it's up to temp, or do you get it to required temperature first? It actually will run once it hits the required temperature. So because I started this, I don't know, it was probably about 45 minutes ago to make sure that it was totally up to temp, I can just set it after dropping it in, and it'll run for the amount of time that I wanted. But because if I were to, say, start it off in just kind of cold water, which is actually sometimes my preferred method of starting it out and just let it naturally kind of come up to temp. So then that way the meat also has a chance to gently come up to temperature too, as opposed to just dropping into the hot water. It'll take a little bit longer, but I kind of plan that out. So I'm like, okay, if I'm aiming for dinner at, say, 6 o'clock, right? Then I know it's going to take 45 minutes or so for it to come from tap temperature up to the temperature that I want. And then it's going to take like another 90 minutes or so. So it's just you have to do a little bit more planning ahead, but that kind of preparation that you do will lead to much easier things down the line. So now that this is in, until it's ready to go, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it. And we will finish all those off, like I said, with the cast iron skillet that's currently heating up to 400 degrees in the oven. So, yeah, exactly. It makes sense. And it's interesting, in a number of forums that I've been in, specifically like reading about people who do sous vide and kind of their recipes. One of the most commonly, I guess, parroted concerns is that, so USDA has said that the danger zone for foodborne pathogens is, and it's actually shifted a couple of degrees in either direction a few times, but just to make it simple, between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Not just as a point of reference, okay? Now what that means is that any present foodborne pathogens can grow and thrive kind of within that range. Most ideally is what we would consider room temp, okay? So whatever your comfortable room temp is, that's the temperature that foodborne pathogens are really going to kind of flourish and multiply. This is hanging out in a temperature that's below their recommended range, okay? However, it's in this temperature range for a very long time. If you actually go on the USDA website, they have a chart that talks about the logarithmic growth patterns of foodborne pathogens. I'm talking math and nerd talk, but just bear with me for a moment. What it means, okay, is at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, foodborne pathogens will die within about, I want to say it's like 5 to 10 seconds. It's a fairly short amount of time. At lower temperatures, it takes longer, but at 100, like at 129, foodborne pathogens will not be present in a significant amount after, I think it's something like 20 or 30 minutes or something like that. So it's an extended period of time that will slowly take care of any foodborne pathogens. And the number that they have said is, I think if I remember correctly, they call it I think it's log 7 or something like that, meaning that it's not technically considered sterilized, but it is considered pasteurized, meaning that there may possibly be some form of foodborne pathogen there. However, the amounts are so low that the possibility of infection or anything, or it causing any form of sickness, it's incredibly low. We're talking like a 1,000% chance sort of thing. Okay, so I've never had an issue personally. If you do not personally feel safe doing that, that's totally fine. I'm completely confident in this because I've been using mine for, I don't know, a few years now, ever since, like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years. So I'm saying there's a chance. Yeah, exactly. I honestly, I've never personally have encountered anybody that's genuinely had an issue. Any issues that have popped up have always been, well, my friend's brother's roommate's daughter's sister's brother had a problem. Like, it's never been firsthand. It's always been some apocryphal story. So, your mileage may vary. Take it with whatever grain of salt that there is. So, at any rate, we've got some other stuff to get going. Since it's going to take kind of the longest amount of time, we're going to go ahead and get started on the potatoes. The two biggest ingredients that we need to get prepped are some onions and some potatoes. We're looking at about a little over 2 pounds. I'm using Yukon Golds, about 900-ish grams for the metric folks. And then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna bust out my mandolin, not the musical variety, and we're gonna slice these into about 1/2-inch rounds before getting them into the pot with heavily salted water, and then we'll put them on the stove. So in the meantime, yeah, that'll work. Okay. Whoop, there we go. So, actually, I'm not even sure if this one will go to a full 1/2 inch. So, just for reference, I'm kind of like looking down the barrel a little bit just to kind of, there's a screw adjustment here, and I'm just trying to adjust the thickness to something that I want, because we're going to slice up the onions, and those are going to be relatively thin, and then we're going to saute those up in some butter with some salt and pepper. Then we'll go ahead and slice up the potatoes and everything. So let's grab a knife and take the top off of this. So how's everybody's Monday been so far? Not so much on the bench cam. Okay. This onion was feeling a touch soft on the outer layers. So I was just kind of curious, like, if something was going on in the middle of it, but I think we're good on this. Yeah, that's looking good. Hey! Vinny, welcome. Yeah, you know what? I totally get the mandolin and the Y peeler. I completely understand. I have cut myself with both of those, so I totally understand where you're coming from. I just I try and be careful, but you know, I also realize that getting cut sometimes it just happens, despite how careful one is. And I just, you know, I don't let it bother me. I just kind of do my thing. A Y-wing peeler. You know what? If a Y-wing peeler is anything like an actual Y-wing, pretty dang useless in my opinion, but that's just me. I never understood. I mean, they were bombers, but I wasn't a big fan of them. Yeah, to be honest, like when you're using a mandolin, it's you gotta watch your fingers, obviously, because in this case, and this is part of the reason why I got this one, it's a straight blade that I can actually remove and sharpen, as opposed to some of the other kind of commercial mandolins that have kind of a big V, which you can't easily sharpen, or they aren't even removable, and so you just kind of have to deal with it. But in my case, you know, I just kind of keep my fingers up when I do it. You know, it's funny, I remember as a kid going to the county fair, and I remember they used to have all these kind of like salesmen demoing their products there, and one of them was doing a mandolin, and it was something that at least I hadn't seen before. I was a little kid at the time though, but I just remember him talking about how easy it was to slice things, and he's like, think about it like you're traveling across country and back again. It's like going to New York, then back to LA, then back to New York, then back to LA, then back to New York, then back to LA. I just remember him saying that over and over and over. I don't remember what the guy looked like. Don't remember much other than that, just that whole New York, LA, New York thing. Since we got some nice big pieces of onion, I like onion, I'm gonna throw them in. Uh-oh, what'd Vinny do? Darling? Oh, yeah. Yep. I've had it catch on the nail and not actually go all the way through, thankfully. But, you know, it's just one of those kitchen hazards, I guess. But I try not to think about it. I try to focus just on kind of what I'm doing and not sitting there going, well, this could go wrong, this could go wrong, this could go wrong. Because if I'm so focused on what could go wrong, then I'm not focusing on what I'm doing. And I just feel like that's going to create more of a hazard and potential for disaster. As if I'm, you know, my focus is, you know, elsewhere. So, okay, we got some onions. And those are looking nice and broken up. Cool. Okay, we'll open that up, because next up will be the potatoes. And in the meantime, so we've got a guest staying with us at the moment, and when they came on, I think it was Thursday night, they requested ramen, and there's a place that's not too far away from here that does to go, and these little takeout ramen bowls are pretty awesome. And because, you know, a lot of times it's like, hey, if I got food or someone's coming over, I can send food with them, and so we hang on to these containers and run them through the dishwasher. So today it's working real nice. And my onions are working on my eyes. Hail hydrate. No, actually they don't. They don't melt, amazingly. So, yeah, that's kind of nice. Okay, let's work on these potatoes now. So I've scrubbed these earlier, and I'm gonna want to actually, I think, take off a little bit of the leading edge, just so then that way the first slices aren't quite so wonky. And that is a technical term. Okay. Plus they also stand up nice and easy that way. Alright. So I've got this sucker opened up all the way, and this is where if something's going to go wrong, it's going to be here. So I'm just going to be nice, and slow, and deliberate. Maybe put my cut glove on. There we go. And I think. One more. Yep. Okay. One more. That's good. Traditionally, I guess, the lyonnaise potatoes are made with russets. From what I was reading, it was saying that because they'll crisp up real nice, which I don't doubt. But I can't say I'm the biggest russet potato fan personally. So I had the Yukon Golds. I figured I'd use them. You okay there, Lumpy? Cheeks are clenching. Chainmail, yeah, chainmail gloves would be good. I actually have a chainmail scrubby for cast iron, and I do have a cut glove. I got this guy here, and so file this under, ways to give your loved ones a heart attack. Cut glove came in the mail from Amazon when I first got it, and I put it on, and so I'm like, oh look, I got a cut glove. And so then I took one of my really sharp kitchen knives, and I go up to Mrs. Waisel. I'm like, oh, look at that, look what I'm doing, oh look, there's not cutting, everything's fine, and she started freaking out, and I'm like, no, it's a cut glove, it's meant to resist cuts. So yeah, you know what, Vinny? So in this particular circumstance, I'm not doing it super traditional because A, I didn't peel potatoes, and B, I'm not too concerned with putting them all nice and flat and making them look all pretty. I'm gonna mix them up, so then that way there's some onions that's having contact because I'm gonna be baking it, and it'll be a little bit more mixed up, a little bit more rustic. So at least that's how I'm making them tonight. And if I had any rendered Duke, what happens when you have a duck and a moose? If I had any duck fat or goose fat, or lard, that would work really nicely. I think beef fat would be pretty excellent too. If you can get rendered beef tallow or something like that, that would probably be wonderful with this. Just, me spitballing, as it were. I think I hear a Jane. Is that a Jane?
Yeah.
That is a Jane. I knew I was getting close, that's why I slowed down. Okay. murdered, yeah, murdered chicken fat. Yeah, totally. Okay, so I've got my, this is a 6-quart casserole, as it's called. So I'm just dumping all the potatoes in there, and then I'm going to cover it with water by about an inch or so, and then I'm going to add a nice amount of salt, so they're nice and seasoned, and then we're going to put them on high heat to come to a boil, and then once they hit a boil, we'll turn the heat down and let them go for about 2 minutes. They don't need, we're not trying to cook them all the way through, we're just trying to parboil them, so then that way when they go into the oven, they'll crisp up real nice. I'm actually thinking I'm gonna drain this first run of water because it's full of starch. And when starch comes to a boil, it tends to get all kind of foamy. And it just, I don't know, it doesn't look very appetizing. And then, yeah, it just kind of hangs around. And so a lot of times if I'm making like mashed potatoes or something like that, I'll actually skim the water in order to get rid of that foamy stuff. I mean, to most sane individuals, it is a completely unnecessary step. But I don't know. As I think I've demonstrated previously in the kitchen, I'm not 100% right in the head when it comes to doing stuff like that. So I'm gonna do what works for me, and I get good results. So I'm happy with that. All right. Go. And I retrieved the lid. Now what? There we go. Okay. That timer is set, so we're just going to keep an ear out. And we'll go rinse this off real quick. And then we can start... Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this here, because we got garlic we need to do. Dun-dun-dun. Oh. Yeah, that was a 4-pack that I won by way of a giveaway from Grant, and it just fits real nice there, so that's where it sits. If it fits, it sits. Exactly. Okay. So next, I need garlic in a couple of different forms. So I need sliced garlic to go with the potatoes, and then I need like chopped up garlic to go with the green beans. And I will be refilling this baggie probably a little bit later, which you can't see right now. Picked up another bag of garlic earlier today when we went to our not so local Korean market. So yeah, that works. Okay. So for the potatoes, we will go ahead and just slice these up. Okay, that's 2. Okay. And that's 4. Okay. So So that'll be good for the potatoes. I'm gonna pop these into that ramen bowl because I got it and it had potatoes in it, and that'll work out real nice. As for these, I'm gonna take off the end that was attached to the root side of the head, and then we're gonna do a little smashy. And we're just gonna run our knife through it a couple of times. Because for this sort of thing, I mean, I don't need, you know, perfect mince. I don't need super tiny pieces, because this is gonna end up kind of steaming / braising, and at the very end kind of fry up a little bit. And so what I like to do is I got this little bowl. It probably holds about a cup-ish. I'll get my garlic in there, and then chili garlic sauce, aka sambal, also made by Wei Fong. If you're familiar with Wei Fong, they make cock sauce, sriracha. But I like to get about kind of a nice spoonful in there. So put that back. And lastly, this is just an extra dry sake. It honestly, when it comes to cooking with sake, for me, I just kind of grab what's on sale. I just look for something nice and dry, so I don't want any sweetness. And so, I don't know, probably about 5 ounces or so ish, because it'll get added to the pan with the green beans and act as the steaming liquid, and it just adds a really nice flavor and aroma to everything. But it mostly boils out, so there's very little of it left over. Would harissa also work? I don't see any reason why. In other words, wait for it. Will it play? Oh, is that busted? That's no bueno. I wonder why that's not working. Huh. We'll have to go back and check. Anyways, I should have played a clip from Hot Fuzz where they were at the hedge, and it's like, I suppose. Yes, I suppose. Yeah, so there's no reason why harissa shouldn't work. Just add it to your own taste. I mean, this is really one of those things that I don't measure because there's no need to. It's purely by taste. I think it was DS O'Malley that posted this meme recently about how baking is I see that. Baking is more of an exact science, whereas cooking is just kind of like, it's, you know, whatever you feel like sort of thing. And that's really the case. Baking tends to be one of those things that you need to be a bit more precise with, whereas cooking like this is way more ish. It's just kind of like, okay, you know, there's a lot of wiggle room, and it's really more to your taste, as I should say. Where are the puppies? There's Jane. Vera. Good boy. Sit, little girl. There you go. Good job. They know they gotta sit. No sit, no treat. starting to come up, but it's not quite there. Okay, so I think all of my principal chopping and everything that I need to do is done. So that being the case, let me clear this stuff away. Dry, and the knife goes away. Back on the magnetic knife block. Okay. Next up, onions. Because I don't feel like doing too many dishes tonight, I'm going to do the onions in here, and then I'm going to do the green beans in here. A little bit closer to when we're ready to go. Let's see, I think according to this, I got about an hour to go on the meat. Although, to be honest, if we pull the meat around about the 1 hour mark, we should be just fine. Usually when I run my steaks sous vide, I usually run them at about 131 Fahrenheit. That's sort of what, at least in my experience with my equipment, what I found to sort of be the sweet spot. Since I usually finish off with the weed burner outside, since it's really quick and it doesn't raise the internal temperature too much. However, with the cast iron pan and searing them, they're going to be in there a little bit longer in order to develop that crust, and it's going to raise the temperature inside a little bit. And so that, having that in mind, I drop the temperature that I usually do them at a couple of degrees, so then that way it doesn't go too far over. Yes, a propane torch. Sorry. When I speak of weed burners, I'm talking about a propane torch that's usually attached to a large propane cylinder in order to burn weeds that have grown in between, the cement slabs and things like that. It's a little portable flamethrower and really handy for doing things like finishing off steaks, or, it's like, oh, hey, UTA, I'm going to finish off the meat with this weed burner. So, yeah, it exactly. And as soon as I figure out how to get a camera set up outside and still be able to do stuff inside, then I will probably do that way more often, and then we'll do outside, we'll do inside, we'll be all over the place. It'll be, a billion cameras everywhere. So, okay, I need some butter for this, and I'm going to turn this on. Okay, if you folks are of the health conscious nature, you might want to turn away for a minute. So I'm going to be adding about 4 tablespoons of butter here, which is about half a stick, in order to saute the onions. This is one of those dishes that is not meant to be necessarily the healthiest. However, if you are looking for, say, a vegetarian / vegan alternative, you could very easily do this with whatever kind of fat of your choice. I would recommend something on the neutral side, something like grapeseed or safflower oil, something like that. Oh, funeral. Okay, wait. Do you have the list open? Apparently, funeral potatoes is being asked for. Okay, so these are now boiling, so we'll turn that down. Okay. The onions here are going to take a little bit. But I'm just trying to get this melted, and then as soon as the foaming dies, that foaming is literally just the water that's in there boiling off. And so what we're going to be left with is straight up butter fat and milk solids, aka brown butter, which is straight up delicious, and it's what I put on my popcorn. Okay, we are at that point. So I can tell that the foaming is not really big. It's like these tiny little concentrated bubbles. And if you look at the bottom of the pan, I'm not sure if the camera's really able to pick it up. You can kind of see some, like, the yellow starting to turn brown. Well, that's what we want.
John asked, is plant-based butter any good?
Is what?
Plant-based butter.
You know what? I've never tried it, so I can't say for certain. Although, if it's plant-based, it's not going to be butter. It sounds like a margarine. I've not used any plant-based butters or anything like that personally, so I can't say for certain. But if it's something that you use regularly and you like, then I don't see any reason why not. Okay. I'm going to throw in about a 3-finger pinch. And a little bit more for good measure. And then the potatoes and the onions are going to get a good, healthy amount of pepper. Okay. Let's turn that off real quick. Okay, so these are now, 3D steamy cam. So these are now parboiled, and I'm just going to kind of leave them out like this, so then that way the little bit more moisture has a chance to evaporate off, so then that way the potatoes aren't exactly watered down. And we'll turn this back on. I've seen some recipes that recommend with the onions here to actually fully caramelize them. I don't see why not. Sounds delicious. Caramelized onions are awesome. Although for just kind of a straight up weeknight meal, I don't really feel the need to go full caramelization. Like, if I get them nicely cooked down and they're, starting to brown, I'm pretty happy with that particular level. I don't necessarily need a ton of sweetness. I like a little bit of bite when it comes to onions in this particular form. Then again, what I've started to do, and this is something that my dad has done, and I like the idea, so I started doing it too. Whenever I go to In-N-Out, one of the things that you can order off of the secret menu is a whole grilled onion. Instead of the normal grilled onions, which are all chopped up and grilled and everything, they'll take a whole round slice of onion and grill it and put it on your burger. What he's also done is he'll get a whole grilled and a whole raw onion, so a raw as well as a grilled, to get that kind of contrast and everything else, because he loves onions, and hey, I love onions too, so I figured, why not? And yeah, it's really good that way. So if you're an onion lover, little In-N-Out pro tip for you. And my mashed potatoes. What was the mashed potatoes question from Night Song?
He and I were just talking about potatoes and peppers.
Oh, okay. Thankfully, Mrs. Hueso is within earshot, so she can yell if there's any questions that I missed or anything like that. But these are looking quite nice at the moment. So we can just let them hang out for a bit. Yeah, you know what, Lumpy Pickle? Our closest In-N-Out is about an hour away right now. Which really sucks that it's that far away. But sometimes you get that craving. And I understand from like people's perspectives. If you didn't grow up in California, you don't get the In-N-Out thing. But as a native of Southern California, In-N-Out has been part of my life for the vast majority of it. And so it's kind of a taste of home. Is it the greatest burger on the planet? No, I don't think so. But you know what? It is a very tasty one, and it is a flavor that I love. Oh, Dad wants to try the Flying Dutchman? I'm trying to remember what that one is. Like, I mean, I remember protein style, which is no bun, and they use lettuce leaves as the outside. French onion soup. Okay, so there's another. Okay, thank you. Thank you, baby. Mrs. Hueso's keeping a running list of things, and you can also drop them into the Discord. There's a channel on the Discord about food suggestions, and we'll start working our way through it. So far, so good. Yeah, it really is. Oh, that's it? Just 2 patties and 2 slices of cheese? No vegetation? Is there a bun? I don't know, Lumpy. Unless somehow, like, my parents had you before, you know, me coming along. Which I highly doubt. Secret adoption. So just bun, meat, and cheese, and that's it. Huh. See, it almost sounds like a, whatchamacallit, now, I've never been to White Castle, so I can't speak to experience, although White Castle is somewhere that I do want to go to say that I've at least had it. But I was under the impression that White Castle's burgers were literally meat, cheese, and I think grilled onions, and that was it on kind of a slider bun. I don't know if anybody in chat that has a White Castle around them can confirm or deny that. I will say that I know that there's a burger place in downtown New Haven, Connecticut, and I forget the name of it. Old school place. They steam their burgers and the cheese, and so it's like super melty. You get White Castle. I know you can get them boxed at the store, but no. I don't know. I've got. I don't know. The idea of buying them in the frozen section just kind of like scares me. They're so thin that they never have to flip them. I've seen that. Yeah, exactly, Scott Connor. It's a famous place, and what's really funny is I didn't live in New Haven proper. I lived in just outside of New Haven, and but I was in downtown New Haven all the time, and apparently it's right around the Yale Quad where the courthouse is, and I know that quad. I remember that quad quite well because there's an amazing cemetery that's just a couple of blocks over. It's a super old one. It's got some amazing monuments. But I didn't know about the burger place at the time, or else I would have eaten there. Because that was one of the things that always bummed me out about living in Connecticut, is like I could not find a good burger for the life of me. Which Five Guys? Oh, no, not New Haven, Indiana. No, New Haven, Connecticut. Okay, I think we're about to the point where we can start adding in the garlic. This is just a big heat-proof spatula of mine. I would imagine the New Haven in Indiana is probably pretty small. We have some friends that live... I think they're in... Are they in Indianapolis? I don't know. It's Indianapolis or like Indianapolis metro area. And I have a cousin that went to school in Indiana. And it's just like, yeah, there's nothing here. So, this is kind of funny. Onions is looking real good, smelling real good. Garlic hasn't really starting to soften up yet, so we'll just let that go for a little bit. And I think what we'll do is then we'll just, oh yeah, these are nice and hard boiled. We'll probably mix them up in the little wok here. And most likely we're going to add another 4 tablespoons of butter. Toss it all together, and then we'll put it in the pan, and that'll be ready to go. Because, let's see, how much time is left? 45 minutes. Okay. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Does pineapple go on pizza?
Oh. Does pineapple go on pizza? It's all up to personal preference. I consider it a mortal sin, personally. But nonetheless, that is just my opinion. If you enjoy pineapple on your pizza, then please, by all means, have pineapple on your pizza. Like I said, I'm not a fan. I think it's a mortal sin. But you know what? That's just my opinion. And oh no, who did?
Accidental chaos.
Oh.
Why do some people add sugar to onions to caramelize them?
Oh, that's a great reason. So, the reason why some people will add sugar to onions is because caramel is made from pure sugar. Okay? Caramelization is the one of the processes by it's that browning, and so what happens is by adding that sugar, it starts to add a little bit more brown, and you start to get those caramel notes, and you start to get the flavor compounds that come with caramelization and the Maillard reaction, as it's called. It really depends on what your final intended usage of them is. I don't generally add sugar unless, honestly, I don't know of a situation where I would. And last time I was doing onions like this, we were talking about adding baking soda, which is an alkaline, which means that it drops the pH of the onion. So it brings it from acidic to closer to neutral and helps them caramelize quicker. However, you have to be really, really careful with it because what ends up happening is it starts to turn to a caramelized onion mush, as opposed to, like this, we still got, even though the onions are super soft, they're still individual pieces. With the baking soda, at least the one time that I did it, it turned more to a mush than kind of what I was wanting. And, you know, I don't remember, I think it might have been going into a curry or something like that. And if I was using it as a flavor base for the curry, then no problem. Because then it's just like it's being blended in and it's just part of that flavor base. And I would have mixed in like the dry seasonings and kind of got them all going out there. Yeah, eat what makes you happy. You know, I mean, I have my opinions on things, certainly. But like everything else in life, I feel like they're my opinions. And that's just that. They're mine. I don't believe in necessarily forcing my opinion on anybody else. Because how I choose to live my life may not jibe with how you want to live your life. And if I want to live my life the way that I want to live it, the least I can do is afford you the same courtesy to be able to live your life in whatever way makes sense to you. You know what I mean? So if you want pineapple on your pizza, then more power to you. It's not my thing. Then again, you go to Korea. We were watching a food video not that long ago about a pizza place in Korea. And they were putting things like canned corn, all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was just like, such a bizarre combination, but at the same time, I could kind of see how it would work. So, you know, if you're only down for the straight up authentic, like wood-fired oven margaritas, then have at it. I will take a solid slice of New York pizza any day. The other debate that kind of comes up is like, what about Chicago pizza? If you like Chicago style pizza, again, more power to you. To me, it's a pizza casserole. Aw, you're quoting the Fast and Furious DVD. So, fun fact: the first Fast and Furious, a lot of it was filmed in parts of Orange County and like Long Beach, and there's a scene in the first one. It's where they stash the black Hondas, and there's this big water tower that's like off in the middle of nowhere, and that whole scene out in the desert, that we found it. It's on, I think it's Winchester Road out in Hemet, if I remember correctly. And it's one of those things that the first time I drove by it, I was just like, wait a minute, that looks really familiar. So I had to actually like pull up Fast and Furious and kind of watch it, and sure enough, it's the same place. It's like this tiny like private road that's really hard to get to, but it looks like that whole scene where they're trying to hijack the truck was filmed on that road. So, was that Winchester?
I don't know. I wasn't with you.
Yeah, you were. This was in Hemet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. These onions are looking good.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. That was like one of those, no way. Alright, so let's add our potatoes. I've turned the heat off, by the way. We're just going to mix them up. Whoop. That was awesome. Potato took a leap. That's all right. Okay. You know what? Maybe I will lay them down nice. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grease up the pan first. Alright, so that's there. That's there. Another fun pro tip. If you need to grease something, just wad up a paper towel. Get your bit of butter on it. What?
I just put it on screen the way you had it.
Oh, yeah. All right. That is good.
Is there a 3-second rule in our kitchen?
I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of a 3-second rule in this kitchen. For anecdotal reasons, sure. For legal reasons, no, absolutely not. Okay, so let's put in our potatoes. Get all that yummy goodness.
And why did you put fat on the plate? I'm just curious.
Oh, why did I lay down a bed of fat first?
Yeah.
Well, because that bed of fat is going to help crisp up the potatoes, and it's also going to make it easier to release from the pan. And plus, butter just tastes really good. But again, if you are health conscious or vegetarian or vegan, you certainly can use an alternative fat. I have butter. It's delicious. I'm going to use it. Let's get a small one for that corner. Okay. All right, next layer. At this point, it's cool enough where I can just kind of do my thing. And we're just going to keep layering this. Layering. You know, like Shrek and an onion. Oop, that broke. That's okay. Because we still like broken things. Look at tacos. They can break and they're still delicious.
You posted recipes to your Insta and stuff.
I really need to. I haven't as of yet. Like I really should post them like on the Facebook group or Discord. I just haven't as of yet. I think it's one of those things where I've just I found myself being very busy working on all the back end stuff and learning about that it's a little bit of an afterthought at the moment, but going forward I'm going to need to be way better about that, so then that way, you know, like, hey, I really like this thing from that time, and that way it'll be, you know, memorialized, and people are able to go back and make it if they want. And then at some point, you know, we could even revisit things. Went back to using the spatula because it was just easier to pick them up that way. All right. Okay, so not quite 3 layers, but that's okay. Because what this means is that it should cook way quicker. And I'm okay with that. Alright. Alright. One last grind of pepper. I'm going to go pop this over to the stove so it's ready to go.
Accidental guess didn't realize you're pretty new. It said you're doing some job.
Oh, to streaming?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Accidental Chaos. Yeah, no, I mean, I've only been streaming for a few weeks now. So, yeah, it's been quite the journey and the experience thus far, and thankhfully, I've made a lot of, or met a lot of really excellent people online. Mostly thanks to the UTA community, Unleash the Archers if you're unfamiliar with them. And so, yeah, they've been a pretty awesome group of people. And yeah, so we got nothing but love for them. All UTA all the time. Am I keeping track of the number of streams? You know, I had the number going, but I totally kind of forgot about it. Oh, thanks, the hero. I'll have to go back and count. Yeah. Oh yeah, Andy's spending a couple of hours writing the amazing jingle, which it still boggles my mind, and I love it every time I hear it. Yeah. It is a thing that brings me great joy. So I'm just gonna recover this in foil real quick. I had the raw steaks on it earlier, and after the steaks are ready. Okay, so we're at the almost the 60-minute mark on them. So we're closing in on kind of the window for when they'll be like ready to go. So I'm just wanting to get this ready because once they come out, we'll snip open the bag and then we got to drain out the accumulated like juices and the stuff that's going on in there, and then we got to dry them off because water and oil don't mix, and when you put something that's potentially wet into a super ripping hot pan, oh snap, Daniel Decay? Huh, I did not know that. But you put something wet into a ripping hot pan with hot oil, it's going to pop and explode, and that's no bueno. Mally, thank you so much. Yeah, I burned the heck out of my hand because of that very reason. I told the story before, but it ended up blistering like this entire portion of my hand, probably about that much. Like, I mean, it was huge, and it was very painful, but hey, I finished at the top of my class for that kitchen practical, so I was pretty happy with it. So now at this point in time, I'm kind of thinking, let's pop the potatoes in the oven so they're ready to go. Then we'll start working on the green beans, and by the time the green beans are about ready to go, we should be able to pull the steaks and finish those off, and then we'll plate everything up and it'll be dinner time. Okay. All right, so let's put 15 minutes on the clock. And that is in. Okay. So now the question is can DK finish the green beans in that amount of time? And the answer is yes, I can. Why? Because I've done this a billion times. So I'm going to give this a quick wipe out.
What are you wiping?
The wok. I'm just giving the wok a quick wipe out. Because then it's just one less thing I have to clean.
Big guy's checking you out.
Jane's checking me out.
Yeah.
Hi, Jane. I'm checking you out. Eurovision was hilarious. I don't care what anybody says. All right, let's get this sucker going. I've got my green beans all washed, cut in half, and prepped and ready to go. All I did was take the stem off and cut them in half, so then that way it's a bit more bite-sized. Got grapeseed oil here. I've got that mix from earlier of the dry sautéed, the garlic, and the sambal. I've got my salt and pepper handy. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna need. Sounded like the burner was kind of poof poof. Almost like it was getting ready to run out. But that's why I've got second one right here, ready to go. It's one of those things you just learn from experience. It's like, okay, I need to make sure that I've got backups and, you know, redundancies and things like that. So should anything happen, you know. All right, we should be good to go here. That all told is about maybe a teaspoon and a half of grapeseed oil. It's not too much, but I just want a little bit in there. Yes, haricot vert, I believe is what the name of them are. Yeah, French green beans are delicious. If you can get them with regularity, I highly recommend it. They're really tasty. Hit it with some salt. Then we're just going to let these kind of go for a little bit. Soften them up, maybe get some browning on them. Roasted green beans are also fantastic. I love eating those too. Oh yeah, Eurovision was super hilarious. I have seen the Uncle Roger videos. I've seen a couple of them. He is pretty savage, but I can't say that he's necessarily wrong. Apparently somebody's here and Vera's losing it. Even last night we were quoting Eurovision. We were watching the closing ceremonies of the Olympics, and they were doing the I think the introduction to the Milan and I forget the other city that's kind of co-hosting the next Winter Olympics, and they're flying through the mountains and everything, and I'm sitting here going, oh, from the opening video to Eurovision, which is just a riot. So, I don't know, I'm just gonna point this out in case you're not noticing it. So I'm tossing this way, but if you watch like the beans on the far sides of the pan, you'll see that they're not really moving. And so what I'll do is then I'll kind of swish it around 90 degrees and then I'll toss it again like that. So then that way, like, everything's getting a chance to get kind of tossed. Sometimes if I'm feeling really adventurous, what I'll do is I'll actually kind of do it at an angle, and then what it does is it's a combination of twisting and flipping at the same time. Stuff I do in the kitchen. Yeah, it does definitely help when you have the right kind of pan. And in this case, the high sides are really nice, but it's also just practice like anything else. I mean, at first stuff is going to go everywhere, but that's okay. Everybody starts somewhere. But thankfully, cooking is one of those things that I personally believe is sort of a fundamental skill that most people... hey, thanks for the follow! 323 maybe. Thank you so much. I think it's one of those sort of fundamental skills that you don't necessarily have to be great at, but you should at least have a somewhat basic understanding of things. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to be great at it, but everybody eats, and the idea of constantly eating out just, I don't know. Not a big fan of it. But then again, I mean, the culture here in the U.S., that's just kind of how the way things have gone, where we've become more and more reliant on sort of the industrial complex when it comes to food production, that we've sort of lost touch with our own food culture. Especially when you look at like other countries like Italy and Spain, Brazil, you know, places with a rich culinary culture, and it's something that they're very proud of and will defend yourself. They will defend it, you know, tooth and nail. Hail hydrate. So, just a little bit of effort. And sure, it takes, you know, some time, and it's maybe not the easiest thing in the world, but at the same time, it's like, I know what went into it, and I learned what I like and what I don't like and how I can change things up. And it just makes me a more well-rounded individual. Fat jokes. Okay, I think it's still a little bit tougher than I'd like. Alright. And that is why our canister is running low. I can tell because the fire is not as high. Yep.
Replace that.
I don't know, like 2 or 3 streams ago. Alright, that's lined up. Engage, and there we go, much bigger flame. Like, wow, this is taking a little bit longer. Yeah, it helps if you enjoy it, but I mean, I enjoy eating. Alright, I've got about 7 minutes on that. I enjoy eating, and sometimes, you know, I need a snack. What do I have? There we go. See, now we get the ASMR. You get that sizzle. We weren't getting that sizzle before. That is the one problem with these little portable things, is you end up going through those canisters, but works fantastic when we're making Korean barbecue at the table. Oh yeah, you know, when it comes to cooking videos, I mean, I used to just kind of watch everything, because for the longest time, there wasn't a whole lot of food TV around. I mean, I can remember when the Food Network started. Like, I remember before it actually went live, how they ran for, it seemed like it was like a month or two, some canned programs, and it was just like, suddenly here was this, you know, cooking TV, learning how to do stuff, and I would watch kind of everything. But then as time went on and I started to learn stuff, then I was like, oh, okay, I want to avoid certain people, and other people, it's like, oh, okay, I really like what they do, I like their style, or I'm learning things, and, you know, maybe I won't necessarily do it the exact same way, but you end up becoming a lot more discerning the more that you learn when it comes to things. I find that for myself, the majority of the food videos that I watch are not in English, and a lot of times don't have subtitles. In fact, after Saturday's stream, my relaxation was putting on a YouTube video of a guy in Japan. I don't think it's Kimagori Cook. I don't remember the name of the channel. But the guy has got something like, I don't know, 2-3 million followers on YouTube, and recently built a house just from the ad revenue from YouTube. And all he does is, well, I shouldn't say all he does, but he breaks down fish and then he prepares them. And I don't know, I love watching this kind of stuff. Some of his stuff has had subtitles, but for the most part, not so much. There's a few other Japanese fishermen that I watch on YouTube, and then there's a whole bunch of Korean channels that I watch. A lot of street food kind of thing.
Kimagiri Cook. I think you're talking about.
Kimaguri, probably. Yeah, Frugal Gourmet, Yan Can Cook, Ming Sai. Yeah, Yan Can Cook, Martin Yan, bar none, like the grandfather of Chinese cuisine in the U.S. That guy was amazing. Like, look up videos of him breaking down a chicken in like a few seconds. It's insane to watch, and it is just like, holy hand grenades. Hey, Raptor Man's here. Welcome, welcome, Raptor Man. Yeah, Yan Can Cook, like, that dude, he could cook. Still can. Okay, I think we are finally at a point. And I'm going to move this to the side a little bit because there's going to be a big old plume of steam. Okay. We're going to add in our sake and sambal and garlic mixture. And then slap on the lid. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Rep Man. That guy went, oh my gosh. His knife skills are like genuinely god tier. And it's all with the Chinese cleaver, no less. Which, this is a Chinese cleaver. If you'll notice, the profile is super thin. It's not like a normal meat cleaver that usually has a really thick, it's a really thick body, but this is, think of, this particular knife is used for everything in Chinese cuisine. Vegetables, meat, and it's not a heavy thing. It's meant more like as a normal chef's knife, but you can scoop things up. It's incredibly versatile, and if you're like really well practiced with it, there's hardly anything that you can't do with it. Let's see. All right, so it is doing its thing, and I still have it over high heat because it's doing a hard like steam to go with everything. Yeah, exactly. In Mix 65. Yeah, supreming oranges with it is actually in some ways a lot easier than using a normal chef's knife. So cutting a supreme of oranges, which is funny because I just did this 2 days ago. You take off, well, let me grab an orange. So this happens to be a navel, so let me move this over real quick. Okay, so you got kind of that end and you got the stem end. So what you do is you take off both ends, sit it down on the cutting board, and then you start slicing off the pith and the peel in slices all the way around. So you literally just have the orange segments and then all the membranes that's in between. Then you take it and you slice out the individual slices, so then that way there's no membrane, there's no nothing. Usually you take it, you put them into whatever, and then you squeeze out the juice of what's left over. And it was actually something that they would have us do as part of our knife skills testing when I was in culinary school. And so yeah, you'd get quicker at being able to just shave it down and make it look real nice, making sure that there's no membrane on it. Oh, potatoes. Alright, let's see where we're at. Oh, they're smelling good. Not really getting a ton of browning just yet. So I'm going to put them back in for a few more. Alright. Okay. Yeah, those are looking real nice. Perfect. Okay. So those are good to go. I'm going to just put that on there to keep them warm. We'll leave that over here for the time being. We got a few minutes left to go on the potatoes. Let's see, where are we at? 13 minutes. So that puts us at an hour and 17. I'm comfortable pulling them now. Okay. That being the case, that's the thing beeping. I just turned it off with my phone, by the way. All right. So let's let that drain a little bit. So this is what they're looking like straight out of the sous vide. Oh, accidental chaos. Take care, man. Have yourself a good night. What are you prepping for? Oh, right on. What do you stream? Is it like a work stream or? All right. Well, regardless, have yourself a good night. Have a good stream. Ah, right on. Can we get a shout out for Accidental Chaos? I'm just drying these off, by the way, if you can't tell. Anybody? S-O. Yes. Yep. That should do it. There it is. Nice. Good job, baby. All right. So these are looking good. This actually brings up an interesting argument at this point. Yeah, I need to pay my mods more, seriously. So we're gonna sear these off and then slice them up almost immediately afterwards. And there is, yeah, have a good night, Accidental Chaos. There is the school of thought that you need to let them rest for at least 10 to 15 minutes after doing a final sear or anything in order to let the meat relax, let the juices redistribute and the fibers and everything like that. And that's been sort of the general kind of the rule of thumb, as it were. There was some testing that I saw done. It might have been on the America's Test Kitchen website or something like that, because they were curious if it is something that actually mattered. And what they found was that it genuinely makes no difference. Oh, potatoes. What they found was that the moisture loss from slicing immediately versus the moisture or juice loss from letting it rest was effectively identical. And so there was no benefit to necessarily letting it rest to let the juices redistribute, because what they were finding is that it wasn't actually happening. And consequently, if you are watching any kind of video or somebody tells you that searing the meat seals in the juices, either walk away or turn it off, because they clearly have no clue what they're talking about, because searing does not seal in the juices, which you'll see. Hi, Jane. Okay, these are looking better. They're not super crispy. I'm tempted to give them a few more minutes still. Okay. So I just pulled my cast iron pan out of the oven, and I'll be bringing it over here shortly. I've got a lot to say when it comes to cast iron, for a few reasons. Hang on. The sucker is ripping hot, and let me do that. Let's take that off so it doesn't cook. Okay. So, you'll notice with this cast iron pan that there appears to be a chunk missing. Looks like that. I've had this particular cast iron pan for a very long time. There used to be a handle there. I broke it by doing something that I'd done a billion times, which was kind of flipping it and catching it in order to put it away. I had grabbed it by the secondary handle and flipped it towards myself to catch it, and for whatever reason it didn't flip quite right, and it fell and broke off. But I'm like, it's still good, why would I throw it away? I've had it forever. So this one has no handle. The other thing you'll notice is you look at the bottom, you're like, hey, that doesn't look all black like, you know, everybody else's cast iron pan. Why? Like, where's the seasoning? Where's, you know, kind of everything that's going on with it? Well, so this is a Lodge cast iron pan, and Lodge cast iron pans are sand casted. What that means is that they make a mold with sand, pour the molten iron into it, and cast it that way. The result is that it gives it this really kind of like pebbly surface texture to it, right? Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right, Ian McSee, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it gives it this textured finish. And seasoning it is just the process of adding an oil of some kind, wiping it in, baking it, and repeating to kind of build up this layer of polymerized oil to create kind of a non-stick surface. There's a number of sort of artisan cast iron makers that have popped up within the last 10 years or so. And this one in particular, I saw in one of their promo videos that they sand, like they bust out grinders and get a super smooth finish. And I had thought to myself, I'm like, that actually makes a lot more sense, because now I'm having way more contact with what I'm trying to sear. And so I actually sanded down the bottom of this to be pretty smooth. And so it's more direct contact, which is what I want in this particular circumstance. So anyways, in order to sear, I just maximum heat. We're going to let it get ripping hot. We're going to put in a layer of grapeseed oil because it's a high heat oil, and that's exactly what we need here. No additional seasoning at the moment on the steaks. And then we're going to let them go for about a minute and then flip and then kind of evaluate what the crust is looking like at that point. And once we get it to something that we're happy with, we'll go ahead and pull. And then that'll be good. Back to the whole searing question. The whole reason why you sear it is to brown and create a crust. The browning is that Maillard reaction, that caramelization that adds flavor. It actually dries out the meat a little bit by doing it, but it's because it tastes good. Anybody who's cooked a steak purely in the pan will know that, and this is a really amazing thing, is that, okay, you put the steak in the pan and you're cooking it that way, you know that it's time to flip when you start to see juices pool on the top of the meat, and then you flip. That pooling, and by doing it in that particular fashion, results in a perfectly medium rare steak, but it also shows that, hey, you know, these juices are coming up through this seared crust that people are saying that it seals it in. It makes no sense. So, yeah, searing to seal in the juices is utter nonsense, and stay away from the people that say that, you know, oh yeah, it totally seals it in. No, it does nothing of the sort. So, all right, we've got this over the heat. It's been in a 400-degree oven. It's getting hotter. Let's go ahead and put in that oil. And if you notice, I mean, I'm putting a pretty healthy amount in here. And that's because the oil is acting as the medium to create that crust. Nice and slow. I wanted to do that nice and slow so then that way I wasn't splashing, you know, 450-degree oil everywhere. I got it. Okay. It's looking way better. Okay. I like to lift them a little bit in order to get some of that heated oil to work back underneath. So far so good. 12 seconds till flip. Oh, AJ, we have stories about smoke alarms. Let me tell you. I have set off smoke alarms all over the place. Okay.
Honeymoon.
Honeymoon, that was the best one, I think. Oh, we're looking good. ASMR. That is an excellent looking crust so far. Consequently, if your food is sticking to the pan, just wait. When the food is ready to be moved, it will naturally release on its own. Yeah.
How long per side?
I've been doing it for a minute per side so far. Because I don't want to put an uneven amount of heat into it. Okay. Yeah, see how that came up? Alright. So that sear is looking pretty nice. I'm going to put it on its edge now. And do that for a minute. And then I'll do it on this last edge to try and get as much searing onto the outside as possible. No, okay. Oil it is quite a bit of oil, AJ, but to be honest, I'm going to be toweling it off because the oil is there purely to help sear it. As for the butter base, no, I am not actually. That is a very common technique, but it's not one that I usually do. Just personal preference. Like, I knew chefs that actually had spoons specifically for that. There we go.
Getting smoky.
Yep, getting smoky in here.
Open the window.
I'm gonna have to clean off the webcam lens. Oh, that's looking great. Beauty. All right, so that is super hot. Okay. So I'm going to, let's see. Okay, good. I got an open spot. Excuse me, Jane. Nope. Thank you. Alright. Yeah, it's a bit smoky in here. Yeah, so I made steaks on the first night of our honeymoon and set off the smoke alarm at the little hut that I guess we were staying in. It was a timeshare, and that somebody gifted us to use. And yeah, sure enough, I set off the smoke alarm that first night. Consequently, I think it was that second day, our tongues turned black, and we're like, what the heck is going on? And after doing a little bit of reading, come to find out that that's a pretty natural side effect to who'chamacallit, Pepto-Bismol pills, the tablets, because we were both feeling a little, and so we had taken Pepto-Bismol and it turned our tongues black. Yeah, no way of really resetting it, although I did take it off the wall. Yeah, and absolutely. And to be honest, like, the whole smoke thing is part of the reason why I don't usually sear inside anymore like this. What I will do is put a box fan in our the kitchen window over the sink to suck out the air, and then I have a floor fan that I'll have in front of the sliding glass door that's down there, also pulling the air out. But that's also one of the nice things about using the weed burner outside, which is the big propane burner, is that I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff, so it's kind of nice. So we are ready to plate. So I'm going to go get a cutting board for this. And Give me, Jane. Thank you. Alright, let's do this guy. Yeah. I don't know if you can see on camera. See them juices that came out of the steak? If searing seals it in, why do I got all this? And let's use this guy. Why indeed. So let's just go right in the center here. So we can do kind of the beauty shot. And that will start to turn even rosier now that it's had access to the air. But you'll notice that the gray ring around the outside is pretty minimal, and the inside is mostly that rosy pink of medium rare, which is exactly what we wanted to maximize that rosy interior and minimize the hard gray exterior. And that's one of the benefits of doing sous vide, is maximizing that. So let's slice up kind of a healthy portion here. Jane's just standing here like, what about me? When do I get Treatos?
Yeah, that's what they're commenting on.
Yeah.
Like, where's mine? I helped.
You were a help, Jane. Here. Where's the little girl? Good boy.
Outside.
Oh, is she? Okay. Well, if you're not here, you can't get the treat. Although we'll cut off the end for him. Alright, so that's good to go. Let's go grab a plate. Whoop. Got it. Whoop. Where are they? There they are. And let's grab that. We've got our potatoes off to the side here. We got our green beans over here. Here. Yes, it is. Okay. Had to find the good stuff. Had to find my my Worcestershire sauce. Okay. So let's start plating. And that steak. I think Mrs. Weiss is getting pretty hungry. Okay. Oh, hi, Jane. Puppy. Come here, girl. Okay, sit. Good boy. Sit. Good girl. All right, dogs have gotten their tribute now. Let's put on some green beans. So far, like the green beans, really the only thing that I've had a taste of so far, and those were perfect. A little bit of heat to them. The garlic comes through really nice. There's a really nice aroma from the use of the sake. So there's our green beans, which I'll probably come back for like 2 or 3 times. And then lastly, these potatoes. Which, let's be honest, because potatoes. Little stack of them. I'll get some additional onions all up in there. And lastly, it's the one problem with this particular jar. Oh, there it is. The homemade sauce. That's just a spoonful, which dress it with that. And that's dinner, folks. That is tactical snacks for the evening. Let's turn off the cook cam real quick so we can get full-on food porn shot. If I had a little lazy Susan.
Someone's asking about you made your own A1.
You know what? I have not made my own A1. I have seen recipes for it. I generally speaking am not a big fan of heavy sauces on steak. Like Worcestershire is usually about as heavy as I'll go. I will, like I said, Worcestershire is about as heavy as I'll go. I tend to prefer it pretty simple. A Béarnaise is fantastic. That is Mrs. Hueso's one of her favorites. But for the most part, if I'm having a steak, I want to taste the steak, and too much of a sauce or anything like that, I think hides that flavor. And if I want to taste that beef, I like to keep it simple. So let's grab a bit of that steak. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's super good. Okay, let's try the potato. Those are looking pretty soft. That's good. Got some onion in there. That's pretty good. They're pretty creamy, but nicely seasoned. The caramelized onions are a really nice touch. I don't know if one of the steaks is going to last until tomorrow and make 65. It may just end up in my belly. Yeah, those potatoes are pretty nice. Yeah, I think I'd make them again. They're pretty good. It'll be interesting to hear what Mrs. Hueso thinks of them when the time comes. And then the green beans. Nice big old pieces of garlic, some of the spice on there. Whoop, there we go. Tender, but a little bit crisp. Perfect texture. That was fantastic. I'm looking forward to putting all of this into my mouth. Yeah. Folks, that is dinner for the evening. I will be slicing up the rest of the steak and dishing up, or letting Mrs. Hueso and our guest kind of dish up themselves. This is straight up delicious. That's something I should clip, is the straight up delicious from Parks and Rec, as uttered by John Ralphio. Everybody wants some, no joke. So, yeah. Do we have any questions this evening? Plain old spaghetti. You know what? Plain old spaghetti hits the spot, Raptor Man. It does. This just happens. I mean, this was like, oh, hey, we're doing a thing and, you know, whatever. And I mean, this isn't, like, we don't eat steak super often. But when we do it right, because that's how it is. And, man, spaghetti, straight up marinara sauce, some garlic bread, a salad, that's fantastic. How long am I keeping the braids for? Okay, so the braids, Grant, just as an FYI, they'll probably come out like tonight, only because these ties suck. They're awful. Once I get some proper bands, I'll probably drop them back in, and then I'm not entirely certain how long they'll last for. Hey pups, they're like, I smell food, and it's about time to eat. It is almost their dinner time. We usually feed them around 6:30 PST. Yeah, like if I let them go for an extended period of time, like they could get way longer, but they're not necessarily going to be super fat just because I'm somewhat follically challenged in that particular respect. Yeah, it's super good. You mentioned, Grant, that you were going to be sous videing some chicken in the near future. Yeah, if you have any questions about that in terms of just whatever, you know how to get a hold of me. You can call me anytime, and I'm happy to talk you through it. So whatever's clever, just hit me up if you have any questions. Oh yeah, no, they're always looking for snacks. Don't worry, guys, food's coming soon. Y'all act like you never get fed.
Like we feed them crap.
Yeah, like we feed them garbage or something like that. No. So. Yeah, absolutely. When you start diving into it and you're like, okay, just trying to wrap your head around it, yeah, just hit me up. I'm more than happy to talk you through it. It's really easy. All it requires is a little bit of planning, and if you can do a little bit of pre-planning, then you're golden. So, I mean, yeah.
Does thickness of chicken matter for the sous vide?
It can. It also depends on what cut it is. If you're doing a straight up like skinless chicken breast, like a boneless skinless chicken breast, versus a bone-on skin-on chicken breast, the time will vary a little bit, but not a lot. However, if you're trying to do like say thighs or drumstick sous vide, which I personally don't necessarily recommend, just because the texture of the dark meat when it comes out is a little funky. Thighs and legs tend to be quicker cooking, so I straight up roast them that way. It'll be at like 3 or 4 a.m. Oh yeah, no problem. Dude, you call me at 3 or 4 a.m., I'm going to take that call. I'm just saying. But, yeah, if you're doing, like if you've butterflied the chicken breast, meaning, for those who are not familiar with the term butterflying, it's you have your, full chicken breast laid out and you run your knife kind of down the center of it, leaving one edge of it connected, so then you open it up, and it's called butterflying. Oh, hey, thanks for the bits. And it flattens it out. That actually will take less time than the full thickness. Thickness when it comes to like doing roasts and things like that will also make a difference. Although for doing like a pork roast or a chuck roast, because they're usually like a chuck roast, I do them for 48 hours, and I do them at this kind of medium rare temperature, and the resulting texture is like steak. Yeah, a 48-hour chuck roast sous vide like literally comes out like steak, and it cuts like butter, and it is phenomenal. Yes, it's 48 hours, which means you got to plan ahead for it, but it's absolutely worth it if you have the time. Pork butt or pork shoulder roast, usually somewhere around 18 hours or so is pretty typical for that. again, it's all planning ahead. But I mean, if you're just looking to throw something together, like if you're honestly like the steaks, because I had them ready to go, hour and a half. But for bigger things, like we've done ribs, for instance, ribs are about 36 hours. Ribs done sous vide are phenomenal. I mean, it's not barbecue. I would never call them that. But ribs done for 36 hours sous vide and then finished off like in a ripping hot oven are amazing. Yeah, a roast would be good. To be honest, funny you should mention that. At some point, I thought, okay, let's make, like, say, beef stock in the traditional manner. So we're gonna let it simmer for 12 hours. Like, I'd get a camera on it and just let the stream go for that amount of time, and so you'd have like this full-on ASMR like stock cam or something like that. At some point in the future, yeah, that would totally be it. It's like, okay, we're putting the Sunday roast in, and you're good to go. Yeah, and so I mean, these are things that we've talked about that we'd like to be able to do in the future. I'm always making notes when it comes to this sort of thing. I've started actually keeping a running note on my phone of ideas and things that I want to do. Like, for instance, oh, okay, no problem, man. Go kiss her goodnight. I'm assuming, is Jethro going to bed too, or is it just Princess V? You know what, Scott Connor, bring it. I've already been visited by the vegan police, so I don't really mind.
Freeze! Vegan police! Vegan police!
Wait for it. Oh, okay. Yeah, a tri-tip. You know what's funny? It's funny you should say that, Ian McSee. I got up early and went to the market this morning to see if the place that carries picanha or the coulette had any today. They did not, but they did have tri-tips. And I'm like, oh, tri-tip could be good. I'm like, you know what? No, I got the steaks. Their tri-tips were beautiful, but I do them effectively in the exact same manner. Hit them with salt, let them sit in the fridge. If I can do it overnight, even better. And then sous vide it at that temp for about 90 minutes, and then finish it off with the weed burner. And it comes out phenomenal. For that, I would use my butt glitter on it. In terms of seasoning, not necessarily with any sauce, although I have kind of hit it with salt and then put on a really thin layer of just like yellow mustard, and then hit it with the seasoning, a nice thick layer before sous videing it. And that's come out really nicely. The only problem is that a lot of that stuff tends to come off once you pull it out of the bag. And so nowadays I will only do salt. So then that way I'm not literally throwing away seasoning that I can just put on at the end and call it good. Yeah, you know, it's funny. The tri-tips night songs, the ones that they had were probably around $13 a pound or something like that. Sauce and seasoning prep.
Got it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, beef right now, especially in the US, has definitely gone up in price a fairly significant amount. Just how... Where are you at, Night Songs? Just out of curiosity. Are you like in different country? Oh, Massachusetts. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's like that all over the country. It's just because I know a couple of weeks back I was trying to get chicken guts for our dog's food, and the store that I normally go to that normally always has like a big coffin cooler filled up. That's what the term for them. The big open like coolers that they have in markets, they're called coffin coolers. Don't ask me why. They would usually have rows of them, like it's nothing, and you know, I'd get what I need and call it good. Well, they didn't have any, and I talked to the I talked to one of the workers in the meat department there and asked about them, and what she told me is that that particular processor were down about 1,000 people in their workforce, and because of that, like any good business, they said, okay, well, what can we do to maximize whatever money that we can make with our workforce, and so then that way we can make sure that people are still paid, et cetera, et cetera. And so they got rid of kind of the stuff that takes more time to produce and also makes them less money, chicken guts being one of them. And so it sounds like that's kind of the case at a lot of processors, especially, is that the workforce is dropped significantly, and so because of that, it's costing them more to produce the same things, and so they have to raise prices in order to maintain their margins and keep operating. So that's just kind of how things go. Interestingly enough, the next day I went to a different location for that same market, and they had all the things, and so I stocked up on what I needed. So I got a whole bunch of chicken guts out in the freezer, so then that way I can make dog food for at least 2 months, I think. Yeah, tri-tips tend to be very much a West Coast thing. I mean, the tri-tip cut originated really kind of out of Santa Maria, California. And it is the basis of Santa Maria style barbecue, which has been officially recognized. But it's this triangular piece of meat that's on, if I remember correctly, kind of the forward breast of a steer. And it's this triangular cut of meat. It's not necessarily available everywhere because not everybody really knows about it. It used to be that they were super cheap. I used to be able to get bags of them at Costco that were untrimmed, and then I would trim them myself, and they were, I want to say it was like $6 a pound or something like that, which for tri-tip was fantastic at the time. Yeah, a tri-tip is it's a very specific cut of beef. If you have a quality butcher around you, AJ, go to them and ask them if they've heard of the tri-tip. But it literally looks like a, well, you know what? Let's use this for as it was intended. We're gonna draw. Okay. So a tri-tip tends to look tapers off like that. It kind of looks like that. And what's interesting about it is the grain actually kind of does this weird split right about here. And so like the grain of this is all running this way, whereas the grain of this is running this way. And so like when I go to cut it up, what I will do is I will bisect it right there, which just means to cut it in half. Language. And then thinly slice it like this, and then this side like this. What's interesting too is that, so this edge tends to be pretty thin, and it gets relatively thick towards this portion. And then this edge tends to be thickest, and it gets thinner going that direction. But it is a, like I said, if I remember correctly, it's part of the forward kind of breastplate area on a steer. I would have to bust out a beef diagram. So I don't recall 100%. So, happy little trees. If I had a brush, I'd be like, tap, tap, tap. Anyways. Yeah. 2 hairs and some air, exactly. Bob Ross was the man. So, any other questions, folks? Well, there are some farms here where if you buy direct, you can get some decent beef prices. Yeah, generally speaking, if you buy direct, you're going to get the best prices on a per pound basis, because you're not dealing with distributors and middlemen that have to add in their markups in order for them to make a profit. And then it also depends, like if you're buying direct from the ranch, if they're butchering it and how they're breaking it down. But a lot of times what's kind of cool is if you can get, like, say, a quarter or a half even, and then they'll have you decide if you want a forward or a rear half. Just spoiler alert, the forward half is where, like, your steaks are going to be. It's going to be where a lot of the better stuff tends to be. But yeah, then they'll usually slaughter, hang, and then break it down for you. Sometimes they'll turn it into burger as well as some of the other stuffs. Yeah, and if you can get, like, you know, it's funny you should mention the farmers markets and that have that local grass-fed beef. We were visiting my brother-in-law a little while back, and there was I wouldn't really call it a farmer's market. It was literally 2 tents, and but they were selling this locally raised grass-fed beef that apparently they raised themselves, and it was phenomenal. What I will say between grass-fed versus grain-finished, yeah, grass-fed is generally speaking kind of the default in the bulk of the world, although what you find between the difference between a grass-fed versus a grain-fed is your grass-fed tends to have less intramuscular fat, so that marbling, which is why a lot of ranchers, what they'll do is the steers will be able to graze and feed on grass for the bulk of their lives, and then it's usually, I think, 2 weeks before the scheduled slaughter that they'll switch them over to a grain-based diet, because that grain will actually help them build up that intramuscular fat, and that's how they're able to get turn like a choice or select grade beef into something that's potentially prime grade. And the difference in the grading just has to do with the percentage of intramuscular fat to meat. The higher the percentage, the prime grade is, at least here in the US, that's kind of the highest grade that there is. But then when you start learning about like Japanese beef and you start talking about like A5, which is the absolute sort of highest tier, the percentage of fat to beef is insane. Actually saw a couple of A5 steaks. When was that? I think Friday. And the steaks were about that big around. They were also $110 each. And hey, Tungus, thanks for the subscription, buddy. But I want to say like the fat to meat ratio on that thing was somewhere around 60 to 75% to 25 meat. It was predominantly fat. I guarantee you though, it would have tasted absolutely amazing. But that's not something that you eat all the time. That is something that it is a special occasion kind of thing. And then you go do mad reps to kind of work it off. So yeah, it's funny that the whole grass-fed thing, funny story about that. When I was working at Whole Foods in the cheese department, absolutely, man, dude, Tungus, anytime. I'm usually streaming 2, maybe 3 times a week. And then VODs are up. And I have yet to put the last couple of streams up on YouTube, but I will be. And yeah, so working in Whole Foods, working in the cheese section, and we had these stickers that said grass-fed to put on the ones that were definitely made from grass-fed milk specifically. And there was some ladies that came in from, I think it was Ireland, and they were commenting on it like, how fake is this cheese that, like, why wouldn't it be grass-fed sort of thing? And it's because by law, like in Ireland specifically, cattle whose milk is used to make cheese has to be grass fed. It's a law. And so there is no whatever. In other parts of the world, specifically like here in the US, sometimes that's not necessarily feasible. And so sometimes they're fed grain. And what's really interesting is you can actually taste the difference of when the cheese is produced based off of whether or not they were grass-fed versus, like, say, hay-fed. And so the cheeses, depending on the season, you could really taste it. It was kind of interesting. And so we had a nice conversation, and she had a lovely accent, and it was fun to talk to her. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I've actually had... Oh, dude, Tungus, you gotta bust out that sous vide, brother. You gotta bust it out. It'll change your life. It is not the be-all, end-all, but it is a phenomenal tool. And, dude, just hit me up when you have... Yeah, definitely watch out for Munda cheese. If you ever have any questions, just hit me up. I'm more than happy to help you out and figure it out and help you get it set up and, run your first stuff. So, yeah, just let me know, man. Yeah, I can imagine New Zealand supports dairy pretty well. I can imagine it would. A lot of grass there, especially since the sheep industry there is as huge as it is. And they predominantly graze on grass, so it would make sense that dairy would also be kind of a big thing there too. So, at any rate, that's what I got for tonight. Let's see. I'm curious. Let's open this in a new tab. Just kind of curious to see who all's on right now. See if, oh, snap. Let's see. Seven Kingdoms is on. Lords of the Trident is on. Let's see. Kind of thinking we should go invade Thai and Lords of the Trident. I'm curious what they're doing right now. Let's open this up. Looks like he's singing and playing. Okay, well, that being the case, let's send you guys over to Lords of the Trident. Go say hi to Ty. And why is it not letting me? Oop. Why on earth is it not letting me? Now, let's see. Nope. That's not the button. Nope. Typing is hard. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Oh, okay. I can kind of see how this... Yeah, because sheep eat the grass down further than the cattle, and yeah, anyways, it's a thing. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Hope you all had fun. Thank you so much to everybody for the bits and the subs and the follows and everything else. Thank you so much. It's been fun, and most likely I will see you guys on Wednesday. And then Saturday, I'm kind of thinking tteokbokki. It's a Korean street food. I'm kind of thinking that's what we'll do Saturday. Because tteokbokki is delicious and I like it. So I'm thinking we will do that. So let's see if it accepts this command. Maybe? I can't tell. Okay. I think that worked. I hope so. At any rate, let's see. Okay. I'm not seeing the actual message for it, but it looks like... Okay, it worked. Okay, very good. I had to flip over to another window in order to see it because for whatever reason, the screen that I was on wasn't showing it to me. So, huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. You know what? I'm going to put this on my list of things to do is to come up with a raid message. So then that way we can all send up a raid message of we come bearing steak or something like that. I know there's a steak emote. We had it. I think it's in the BTTV emotes, which by the way, we also have the drooling Homer now. That's in the BTTV emotes. So yeah, right on. Let's go invade Thai and should be a good time. So thank you so much, everybody, once again. And you all have yourselves a wonderful evening.
Hello, boys and ghouls. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK. Making a snack today. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? DK's making a snack today. Shove it right into your mouth. DK's making a snack today. What's it gonna be? Is he making it for me? DK's making a snack today. It's time for tactical snacking with DK.